pianist, composer, improviser, bandleader and teacher MICHIEL BRAAM was born in Nijmegen, Holland in 1964. That means that in 2024 he reached his 60th birthday. An excellent moment to put the spotlight on his unique and stylistically very wide-ranging music. This film is a journey through 35 years of Braam music, an enormous and still growing body of work. The film is based on concert and rehearsal images I, Bas Andriessen, shot myself for several docus I made about projects of Michiel. All these musical moments are shown with verbal commentary of the pianist in an interview I had with him at his home near Nijmegen in February 2024, where he lives with his wife Marianne for nearly 3 years now, as I speak this introduction. Michiel Braam, we're going to, make a little journey through your career, through your music. It's quite a trip. But first, maybe very short, we do it in English. Why do we do this interview in English?
Well, we do it in English because I'm talking English anyway every day, since I have an English spoken program at the Conservatory of Artes. Artes, you can see it here. That's our Artes hoodie. And so we have an international community of students. Roughly 80% is non-Dutch. So that means that, of course, I also played a lot abroad. So that means that the film is for the internet, and the internet is an international medium. So that's why.
A very good reason. Okay, as I said, we're going to make a journey through your music. And I would like to focus in on especially the different idioms, the different directions that it sometimes takes. And I would like to do it more or less chronologically. So we start somewhere years ago, in 1988. We start with, I think it was the first edition of Bik Bent Braam. And you were invited to do a very special TV program. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so Bik Bent Braam started in '86. First concert was for the Music Meeting Festival in October '86. Back then it was called the International Dance and Improvised Music Festival, I think, or meeting, something like that. Very long name. And we played during the first one with the Jazz Warriors. Bentje Braam was doing the jam session in 42. And the second one, I was commissioned to write a piece for a big orchestra. I was commissioned by two organizations. One was the Music Meeting, and one was Gelderland, the province. So I've written two pieces for Bik Bent Braam in 85, 86, and I think because in 87 it was some European music year, because it was 300 years Bach or Handel, something. So there were a lot of composition commissions given out, and I've written a piece which was called the AABA Suite, and it was played for the first time in '87 in the province house of Gelderland. And a few months before, we had a music meeting. So, and I got this commission later, but I wrote faster. So I was commissioned by the Music Meeting Festival to write something. So I wrote the parkeermeterfabriek, the parking meter factory. And so we played that in October, and then in '87 I played this with Bik Bent Braam, this AABA suite, and in '88 the third Dutch channel opened, TV channel. So until '88 we had 2 TV channels, Netherlands 1 and Netherlands 2, and then Netherlands 3 started. And then I was invited to do one of the parts of the AABA suite, and it was the poem by Paul van Ostaaij, Metafysische Jazz, Metaphysical Jazz, and I do this. I do the text and I read the music on top of that in an AABA form, because all the parts were all AABA forms. It also says something about my background. My background in jazz music is pretty traditional. That means that I'm really into the AABA, the normal forms, like 12-bar form, blues form, or the AABA form, like the rhythm changes. So pieces like, it all came from I Got Rhythm, George Gershwin tune, which has an AABA form. So a few sentences, repeat them, something else, and then repeat the first sentences again. Like in blues, you have these 12 bars, one sentence, repeats itself, and a conclusion. 3 times 4. So that's what I did, and that's what we did for Nederland 3, for the opening of Netherlands 3. And I still remember that almost, that Bo van der Graaf, he was playing in that band back then. He almost was killed by a plug. Plug fell, it was in a very large studio, and there was a plug was lying there, and it was falling down, electricity plug. And it fell just here. If it had fell here, then it would have been the end of Bo van der Graaf.
Incognito! En avant! The Lord is my life! Inderdaad, met banjo's! The Lord is my life! Autosirenen! Trommels! Paardenklingen! Bois de Boulogne! Tiergarten! Made in Germany! Get toch geluid! The Lord is my life! Alice is a Joods, whiskey, jazz!
You also, of course, in the same period, did a solo recording called Oops, a CD, recorded in 042 in Nijmegen, the jazz center of that day. And now we're going to look to you playing solo, more or less in the same period, in 1989. Solo piece called Dropje. You played in a Dutch TV program. Again, can you elaborate a little bit on this take?
Well, it was purely improvised. So, for instance, the name just came up because I had to come up with a name. So, well, what I was doing back then, I did a solo CD. Was it 87? I think I'm not sure about it. Or 89 solo CD. Oops.
Yeah.
It was called Oops, and what I did when I played solo, what I still do a lot when I play solo, I improvise only. And sometimes a tune comes along, but I don't make a plan on beforehand. So, and back then, this whole Oops period, I never played any tunes during solo concerts. It was all completely improvised. So the CD is all the 6 titles. Yeah, I think it's 6 titles. The titles of the tunes, the 6 tunes, are just the time frames.
Okay.
So it's just 11 minutes and 2 seconds, something like that.
And for this TV performance, were you ordered to play, let's say, 5 minutes or so?
Yeah. What I normally do in these cases is they ask me what are you going to play. I say, no idea. 5 minutes, something like 5 minutes, okay? Then they say, hey, that's okay. Then I normally ask them, and I think that's what happened here too. that after 4.5 minutes, someone says something, yeah, and then I make an ending to it. So it is also something about form. That means that you simply have to take an initiative to complete a form, and I like that. I don't mind playing longer or short, or, as long as I know that what's expected of me, then I can make something out of that. That's also, I think, one of the core things about improvisation. Of course, if you play with other people, someone brings something in, and that means that you want to do something with that or not, or you do counterpoint, you do something completely different. And so, of course, you give direction and you take what you get from the other musicians. So if someone, some producer at the back of the piano, not in front of the camera, says, after 4.5 minutes, that's okay. Then I know I have 30 seconds more to go, and I make something out of that, yeah.
This was 1989. We stay in this year, and now we go, of course, to another, I think, important group for you in those days. It was Bentje Braam, the small version of Bent Braam. This is a recording from the Bimhuis, of course, the most famous jazz arena of Holland. And it was a TV program. Was it a live broadcasting this, or I don't think so. This was recorded, I think. Can you remember that? 1989.
1989. Bik Bent Braam in Bimhuis?
Bentje Braam.
Bentje Braam. Oh yeah, well it was for TV, yeah. It was for, it was a program about Dutch jazz and Bimhuis jazz. This evening we had a double bill with Naked City. So we played first and the second set Naked City, playing them with Bill Frisell and etc. Yeah. The whole group. Yeah. And we were both interviewed. I remember that I was interviewed by Bernlef.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And he asked me about Dutch jazz and the differences between Dutch jazz and American jazz, for instance. Having heard all these James Bond tunes played by Zorn, Naked City, yeah.
And but was this a live broadcast or was it recorded?
I think it was broadcasted later, but I'm not sure. But I think so, yeah. And I think they recorded the whole concert of ours, the whole set. And the set was eetsmakelijk, I remember that.
Can you mention the players of this quartet?
Yeah, Ton van Erp on the double bass, Peter Haaks on the mainly on the tenor tuba, a little bit on trombone, and Fred van Duinhoven on drums.
How long has this group existed?
Bentje Braam in this lineup existed roughly 5 or 6 years. Yeah, and we did several programs.
Yeah, because you played a lot then, I think.
Yeah, it was also because I was awarded the podium prize. Yeah. And because of that, we also had a tour which we did with Bentje Braam. So we played, I think 20, 30 concerts, something like that. Yeah. And we also went to Sweden, to the European Broadcasting Union Festival in Kristiansand.
A lot of activity in those days.
Yeah, well, jazz music was pretty much happening at that time, and but I think this the press and the broadcasters and the program makers of the radio, they saw in me someone who did conservatory, like many did back then already, and not playing only jazz standards. There were only many musicians who did study at the conservatory. We were just starting the conservatory studies in jazz music. We were just starting back then, and many were playing more or less jazz standards and not so much free improvised music as I did. So they saw something as an exception in me. Yes. So they embraced that, and they asked me for this EBU festival and for all other kinds of occasions. And Huub van Riel was really at the beginning already asking me for many things. Like
who is Huub van Riel?
Huub van Riel, the programmer, the promoter of Bimhuis.
Peter Haaks, pianist en trombone. Fred van Duinhoven, slagwerk. Tom van Erp, contrabas. En MICHIEL BRAAM, piano. Dank u wel.
Okay, now we're going to make, this was 1989, now we're going to make a leap in time. We're going to 1996, 042. You play there a completely improvised concert. We do a small extract. There was a presentation of a book about jazz, and you played with Ernst Glerum and Bennink. Again, it's only an extract because you played for, I think, 30 minutes or so. But can you say something about how it was for you to play with these guys and what you remember of it?
Well, with Ernst and with Han, I played at a very early stage already, because Ernst was back then one of the teachers at Artes. So when I was 20, I already had classes by Ernst, and we had, and then he was commissioned to write something for the NOS Meervaart Jazz Festival. So he came up with this mob. I think the group was called Mob, and he wrote something like 10 pieces. And he invited 3 students whom he had met at the conservatory. So there was me and Frank Nielander and Jörg Leenaert. And we were part of that group. So that was when I was 21, something like that. I did that, and I played then in that group, and it was with Ernst and with Han and with Tobias, Delius, and Sean Bergen. Made a really big impression on me. And I played piano and celesta in that group. And over the years, I played several times with Ernst and or Han. Yes. In several combinations. So it's not that we didn't know each other.
Okay. I thought it was the first time that you 3 played together.
No, that's not the case.
Okay. But do you remember something of that specific performance?
Really no idea.
No, okay. Well, let's have a look then.
Improvised?
It was completely improvised.
I can imagine that because I played several times with Han. I can imagine that at one point it was really sometimes medium tempo, really jazz, and then something completely different. But it can also be completely not that. I have no idea. I don't remember.
But was it always fun to play with them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like improvising in music is like talking. So if you have a sound discussion going on, then it's always fun to do it.
This was 1996, 042. We stay in 042 and we stay in 1996. Because then you did one short, well, at least we show one short. I think you did 2 short improvisations with Willem Breuker. We're going to watch one of them. Had you ever played on that particular moment in time? Had you ever played with him before?
No, I never played with him before and after. I did, though, do a concert with Bik Bent Braam and the collectief, Willem Breuker collectief, together. And during that concert in Eindhoven, we also did something together, improvised, conducted set.
It was after this.
It was after or before this. I don't remember. But I did. Well, Willem is a special case for me. I heard Willem when I was in high school, because they also did school concerts. So when I was, I think, 15 or 16, I did attend a concert at our high school, Canisius College, here in Nijmegen. And Willem Breuker, I have a lot to say about the Willem Breuker collectief, and also about dancing on stage and etc. And I have all kind of ideas about that, and they're not all good. But when you're 15, 16, and you see a band like that on stage making fun, improvised music, and all those lovely tunes, and being on stage doing strange dances, etc., it was very, very much influential for me. And I think it was, and not only I was there, also Willem Vermeerssen, he's a saxophone player, one of the saxophone players of Aurelia Saxophone Quartet. We were both at that school, and we both heard that concert, and it was for both of us, it was influential, I remember. So it was perhaps for both of us also one of the moments that you think it's completely fun to make music. Let's make this our profession.
But when I see you play, the two of you, in this improvisation, it's as if you had played 20 years together.
Well, of course, we heard each other a lot. Until then, I think all my albums were issued by Bimhuis. That's Willem's CD label. So he had a pretty good idea what I was doing, and I had a pretty good idea what he was doing. So, and then again, what I said about Han and Ernst, if you then start playing together, then it's just opening a discussion, and it goes on. And it's not very unusual that you think that it's as if you played together for a long time, because it's a nice discussion you have.
Yeah. Okay, this was 1996. We move on 1 year in time, and that's of course 1997. We're going to watch a recording of Bik Bent Braam. They did a special program in those days, your group program, of course, composed by you, called XYZ, of Bik Bent Braam. And, well, maybe you can shortly explain what kind of program it was and the idea about these performances.
Yeah, so it was the XYZ of Bik Bent Braam. That means the whole alphabet. So it was 26 pieces, and every piece had a title. The first one started with an A. So it was Aarde Donker in Dutch. And I'm not sure about the English title, but
I don't know.
And the last one was Zwoerdspek. So it was 26 pieces, and every title had some kind of idea. So Aarde Donker, Pitch Dark, it was a very dark piece. And I try to make, and it's something that's it comes natural with me, I think, that I really like to have a title and then for myself have an idea about what this title can be, how this can be translated to music. So not in some kind of a technical sense, but only what kind of feeling do you have with this title. So Pitch Dark, of course, is very clear what you can expect. You expect low notes, etc. I'm not more complicated than that normally, so I try to translate that to music, and I did this for all those 26 pieces, which not means, by the way, that everyone who listened to it has the same idea. At one point I also did colors, for instance. Are we talking about colors also?
No.
No. So I can say something about colors. At one point I did colors. This was 34 poems by Ken Ordine, an American voice and poet. And so it was green and yellow, red, black, white, etc. And I also made 34 pieces on those titles. And it was interesting that every now and then I checked with people, is this indeed green for you? And then, or what do you think here? And then people come up with completely different colors than I have. So it's also very, very personal how you perceive a piece and what kind of meaning you give to the notes. So I always say, if you play for 100 people with 6 musicians with a sextet, you play for 100 people, you have 106 concerts, because everyone perceives everything completely different, and that's nice about music. Yeah. So I remember that we played Flux, for instance, was one of the fast, the F of Flux, or fast in English. Mm-hmm. And Erik Vloeimans played the solo there, and it was a 12-tone chord progression. So it's in a way it's a blues, because it's 12 bars, mm-hmm. And at the same time it's a 12-tone chord progression. That means it's completely illogical. In the sense, blues has a very strict form, like I said earlier, but this was a 12-tone, so it goes from here to there, and then to there, and so 12 chords. And the interesting thing is that I played this with Eric then in 86 or 87, and I also played the same piece many years later with Ilja Reengoud doing the solo on this one. And Ilja really follows all the chords, and I remember that Eric decided to leave the chords what they were and freely play on top of that. And it was a nice way of working with music, especially if you want to make it your own. Then you can be very precise in what your story is, and it can be very different from what the composer thinks or had an idea on beforehand. So if you have 2 very clear ideas, my idea was pretty clear, but it was 12 chords, and Eric's idea about improvising in his own way, but still hearing Joop and me and Wilbert doing all kind of things in the accompanying. That really worked, I think. Yeah, I have good memories of that one.
Okay. Well, we're going to look to Flux, by the way. Yeah, and did you really plan also this little piece for the soloist, for Eric?
Yeah, which not means necessarily that I think this is what I always do in my own groups. I assign parts to specific people, but it does not necessarily mean that they are feeling, that I know on beforehand that they are feeling comfortable with it. So for instance, I written pretty complicated chord progressions for Bart van der Putten, for instance. And Bart is someone who really can make super nice sounds. So if I write something for him with a complicated chord progression, Bart immediately starts to think, okay, well, this is perhaps not really me. And that's something I mean to do. So that means that Eric, he left those chords pretty quickly. Bart would have done the same and do something else. So that means that you get counterpoint automatically in a way.
Now we move on again, of course, but not so far in time. And again we see Ernst Glerum and Han Bennink. Edit is Frans Vermeerssen. And of course we see you in a studio in Hilversum, playing live, having a live broadcast. Well, you must explain, because this is a nice story.
Yeah, it was an experiment by the Dutch radio. And it was a concert over ISDN. ISDN was back then was the newest thing about communicating over some kind of internet. I'm not sure how. Yeah, internet was already there, but it was just starting, and it was over the telephone lines. And we had a concert, the four of us playing in Hilversum, with a saxophone player. Is that right? Was it the saxophone player in Japan?
I don't know, because I didn't hear him when I was filming you there.
Oh, so we don't hear the saxophone. Oh, great. Yeah, I remember what tune we played, Body and Soul. I remember that one. Perhaps we did more tunes. Do you have Body and Soul?
No, it's rather difficult what I managed to create out of it. It's a rather unique recording, but I don't have what the listeners in Japan and Holland heard.
No, well, I'm not sure if I have the recording. You can look into that. But it wasn't a nice experiment. So, and it was one way. That means that I'm not sure who was first and who was last, but one of the two could react on the other one, but it was not possible the other way, because the signal, it was not. Nowadays you have this low latency program, so you can really play together, and the internet is very, very fast. So if you have a meeting with someone who is sitting in Australia, there is almost no latency left. But in those years, the latency was extreme. So I think it was something like 5 second time delay. So it was not possible to react both ways.
So it was for everyone, also the technicians of the radio. It was an experiment.
It was really an experiment, yeah. Yeah, very interesting with Go.
Yeah, and also at a certain moment I remember Aad Bos coming to look at it.
Oh, that's possible. I don't remember that. Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Aad Bos, yeah. Talking about Ken Nordine. Ken Nordine, what I said earlier about voice and the poet, an American poet. That's voice. Everyone in America knows his voice because he did many voiceovers, like Aad Bos, because Aad Bos was one of the main voiceovers.
And he knew almost everything about jazz.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, we stay in 1997. This was a recording I made of you in the studio itself, so not what the radio listeners heard. 1997, Hilversum. We stay in 1997 because it was also the year that you received the Boy Edgar Prize. And there was a special concert, of course, but you were also, again, as was always the case with the Boy Edgar Prize winners, you got a TV performance with, again, Reiz. And we're going to show a little clip of that. But I would like especially to talk with you about this group, because it's with some guests. Explain why these people and what the idea was of this group.
I don't know what group it is.
It's with Martin France and Ian Bellamy.
Yeah. So it was Bentje Braam. And so the second version of Bentje Braam.
Okay.
So not with Peter Haaks, etc., but it was Martin France, Ian Bellamy, Wilbert Theo and Frank Gratkowski. And was it filmed on the morning of the prize?
I think so, in the studio of Han.
Yeah, because Frank Nielander was playing in that group, and Frank was on holidays, so Frank Gratkowski took his place for that concert. And yeah, but it was a work. I was commissioned to write something for Birmingham Jazz, one or two years before that, and this is what I came up with. So I came up with the second cool book. That also implies that there is a first cool book. That's right. During my studies, I had a trio with Ton van der Erp and Wim van Rumt, guitar, double bass, and piano, and I wrote a book for that, the cool book. Some kind of inspired by Tel Farlow, read Norvo, Charles Mingus, like music. So they had a trio and they played some, it was sort of cool jazz, but not really. And I was very much impressed by that music. And so for Birmingham Jazz, I wrote the second cool book, taking back a few tunes of the original book, and I think 2, perhaps 3, and the other ones was 10 pieces in total, and the other ones were completely new written, especially for this group.
What was your idea? I presume it was your idea to have these musicians from abroad?
It was commissioned by Tony Dudley Evans. He is from Birmingham, and he really wanted the group with English and Dutch musicians combined. Okay. So he suggested me the names of Ian and Martin. And Ian and Martin were back then playing with Django Bates.
Delightful precipice.
Yes. So I checked them out and I said, well, great to work with them. And also completely different from Wilbert, of course. So and especially also what I was doing back then, more improvised music, also completely free improvised music. So it was. And Frank Nielander was a little bit in the middle. Frank Gratkowski, of course, was more improvising. But it was again a nice mixture of a different kind of musicians. And I tend to look in that direction, to combine different worlds, hoping that it will bring some new music.
And what are your memories about playing with these 2 English guys?
Well, especially Ian and Gratkowski combined together. Ian was pretty much, he was more traditional than Frank. And we all had a lot of fun. I think that's mainly it. We simply had a lot of fun hearing each other. And there was a lot of respect going on. So respect the fact that you are doing something completely different. And of course, English musicians have a different attitude than Dutch musicians. Dutch musicians do. I always say Dutch people, we have a very good, well, at least back then, and I think we still have a pretty good social system. So that means that if you can't work or you don't really have to worry. Everything will come around at one point. And so that means that Dutch people, I always say, stay kittens their whole life. That's possible. You don't really have to worry. And in other countries, this can be really tough. If you don't find any work or you have all kind of problems, and you can get into all kind of existential problems. And that means that Dutch people are, I think, in a way, less serious than, for instance, English people. And this was nice in this group. The English people were really serious about all kinds of things. And then at one point, they realized that being serious is one side, and you can also do all kinds of other things. I also remember working with Herb Robertson, the trumpet player from New York, and asking me at one point, "But how do you want me to do it? Tell me." And I had no idea. I asked him because he is Herb Robertson, and he has his own ideas. So I'm not going to tell how you do it. I'm completely not interested in that. But for someone from New York, it's a different attitude.
But again, about these two Englishmen, did you feel a musical match?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I myself, in a way, I'm pretty traditional. Like I said earlier, AABA form. It's not without reason that I write the AABA suite. That's because I really like that form. And I'm really into form also. So if the AABA form is not 32 bars, but 33, I find that a problem. But within those 32 bars, I want to have all the freedom I want. Okay. So that also implies that rhythmically, I'm pretty traditional, I think. And of course, these players, Ian and Martin, were very good players, super players, and also rhythmically very, very sound. And so it really connected. And you have always, when you play with musicians, a part connects and a part is perhaps a bit strange. And that's nice about it, because there you can start a discussion. If you are all the same, there's no discussion, and that can become really, really boring.
Now we make an enormous leap in time. 10 years. We fly to 2007. After 9/11 and whatever. But also, I think, a rather different MICHIEL Braam. 2007 you presented Nopera. So now I give you the word because you must explain this.
Well, in a way I always wanted to write an opera. And I've seen many operas over the years, and I normally can absolutely not understand what they're singing. I mean, simply lyrics-wise. So it's they're singing Italian. I don't speak Italian. I understand some words, pizza, but not a lot. So. But even if it's in a language that I speak not many languages, but the main European language, English, French and German and Dutch, I speak. Even if it's in a language that I understand, it's sometimes hard to really grasp what they're singing. So I thought, if I do an opera, I can do it in a self-written language. So I did that, and that also had one big advantage. That means that you can play a different opera every night, because you can play tunes completely different every time you do it. So we had something like 20 tunes, I think, that we had prepared, and we could start them at any time and also play them in a different way every time. Well, what normally happens, what also happens, one of the problems with Bik Bent Braam happened here as well, that at one point you played a tune many times and then it gets some kind of a fixed form. Of course it happened with Nopera as well, but still it was a Nopera, so the N is, it means in a way no opera, Nopera, but in a way, it gave us a lot of freedom to do it differently every time. And working with a very good string quartet and 3 super singers.
You mentioned the names?
Yeah, it was Sean Bergen. He was not a super singer in some general sense, and that's well, we can talk about that as well. About general sense and jazz and improvised music, but okay, he was a super musician and well, he was very inspiring on stage, and also, of course, he had a lovely voice. And then Lucia Meeuwse, who was doing mainly modern contemporary classical music, and Vera Westra, who was doing mainly jazz and blues music, and our trio back then, so the trio with Wilbert Theode and Michael Vatscher, and the Zepp String Quartet with Jörg Brinkman on cello, Jasper Leclerc violin, Une van Geel viola, and Friedmar Hitzel violin. Yeah.
What we're going to see, you hear all the 3 voices, and you hear your language. Is this language more or less improvised, or was it written out by you?
The whole interview was... You do the interview as well?
No. The voices.
This was all written out, yeah. So it's not improvised. Now, what I thought on beforehand is it needs to sound as a real language. So what I did is I took some text from some language and changed the letters. So, for instance, I changed all O's to A's and all E's to I's, etc.
Michela Keshigola, Clemileke Ekiane Zika. Siko Kedo Boudica, Elifonge Seferi, Ekiane, Klehereke, Hedimie, Mujime, Olioke Klekitiki Kiane. Clemileke Ekiane Zika.
So I changed the letters. That means that you get a new language, A, and B, it's consequent. It's consequential done. So that means that if you hear it sometime, it looks like a real language. It is not a real language, but it sounds like a real language because there are some rules that you can recognize at one point.
But that means that Lucia, Vera, and Sean had to study the lyrics.
Yeah, terrible. Yeah, they had to do that. It was very hard for them. I also had so for all the tunes, for all the written parts, it was I written it out, and they had to learn it by heart for those tunes. And then for the rest, I had a long text available that they could use at any time. And well, they also improvised, of course, on that. Yeah, because it's if you stay to that strictly to that rule, then it can be very hard to improvise and to feel free. Like what at one point with Bik Bent Braam, I wrote are we going to talk about Exit or not? No. So with Bik Bent Braam, I wrote the last program was called Exit, and it's a thick book, 500-page book with 26 tunes in it. And in this whole book, there is no C, no E, and no G whatsoever. So I left out 3 notes completely. So it means 1/4 of the note material I don't use. And because of that, there was new music for me, at least. Because everything I knew, I could not. I could not use everything. Because if you normally, when you write for 13 musicians, then within 1 bar you hit A, E, A, C, or a G. So that was not possible anymore. So I had to think about, well, this is a complication, what am I going to do? And we tried at one point to also improvise like that. During the rehearsal process of this last program, Exit, we tried this, and we left that idea within minutes, because everyone was only thinking, and it was not possible to improvise anymore. So that's what happened with Nopera as well. So if you really need to, if there is some composer, libretto writer, who says, no, you should do it like that, then you get a chance that no one is feeling free. Yes. And there is not really music going on.
Agak mai kale.
Kini baca haca ama konya.
Konya kene kene.
Ama konya.
Saka mana kene ma.
Kiteki la puta mimenya. Ama puta mimenya. La puta mimenya. Kiteki. Si la pipa mimenya. Puta mimenya. Ho, after puta mimenya. Ekifiki ilakiti heki nyenya. Ho, tu pupa le kapuke nyema le kisama reka tupa siwela. Ho, epa tu puta mimenya. Obetiki ikakiti kaki wenya. Kiki e batti di zati memba.
This was 2007, what we just saw, Nopera. We move now to 2011. A group called Hybrid. It was a tentet, hybrid tentet. I don't have, from this group, it's an exception to all the other parts that we can see in this film. I don't have a live performance, but we are going to listen to something you more or less composed for this group with a special reason. Explain.
Yeah, well, what I did for this project was I wrote a tune for all the venues we played. So here in Nijmegen, I wrote a song called Huizen Jinneberg, because the concert was organized by 3 foundations. Muziek in Huis, Lindenberg, and the Yin. So some kind of a combination of those 3, Huizen Jinneberg. And we tried to, so I also wrote something for the Bimhuis, for instance. And we tried to have a concert for a Dutch talk show, a daily talk show, De Wereld Draait Door. Because if you played at the Wereld Draait Door, there were people coming to your concert. That's what they said. So I was asked to write something for 1 minute, because it was not allowed to play longer than 1 minute.
Yes.
And then then our manager said, write something in 1 minute, and then we try to get you in this show. So I wrote something. I wrote. Well, apart from the tunes for the venues, I also had some very short snippets. Tunes called Pit Stop and then something. One of the tunes, I still play a lot of those, by the way. But this one was called Pit Stop, Turn Around. De wereld draait door. The world is turning around. That was the name of the show. So Pit Stop, Turn Around. And I thought, well, this is so nice. They hear it and then they want to change their tune of the program. Because it was really a very nice and, well, upbeat tune with all kind of small, nice things in it. But I don't think they ever heard it.
Probably not.
No, I think they were completely not interested. No. I don't know how those mechanisms work there.
But what we are going to hear is not this group playing. You wrote it for them and wanted to play, of course, the piece with them. But this 1 minute piece we are going to hear is recorded by you, I suppose.
Well, we didn't play there, so we didn't rehearse it. Didn't really rehearse it for concerts. That means that what you hear is the media recording. So, yeah, that's what you get.
And you made it yourself, that recording?
Yes, it's all in the computer. Okay. So it's you can't do that on stage anymore, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we did start to rehearse it in Lindenberg during the rehearsal process. But because there was not an appearance in that show coming up, then we stopped it. Because it was also a lot of work. It was not very easy. No. Although it was all very, very sound musicians, very good musicians. Matangi String Quartet, which is of course a very good classical string quartet. And our trio back then, Braam. We're going to talk about him. And Taylor Hobainem on cornet. And Carl Ludwig Hübsch on tuba. And Niels Wokeram on trombone. So it was a very good group. But it was a hard tune, so we stopped rehearsing the moment we knew they were not inviting us. Yes.
Well, we heard the Hybrid Tentet 2011. We stay in that year. Because later that year you also played with another jazz great from the Dutch jazz music. You played it in Nijmegen. It was with Theo Loevendie. Had you ever played before with him?
No, he asked me a few times to arrange something he wrote. And I remember I did Brasilia, arrangement for, a classical contemporary ensemble in Amsterdam. Not being the Volharding another one. So in a way, because he said he recognized in me something that he valued about being able to write and to orchestrate and also to improvise. So this combination. And he thought Michiel can make an arrangement of that. So in a way, he followed me.
Yes.
Yeah, and then that evening in Lindenberg, was Lindenberg, yeah. And well, it was really fun to do that. He was a very gentle person, and of course he had an enormous background in music. Yes. So it was a walking encyclopedia.
I'm going to show the opening piece. I see on your piano, I see paper. So it looks like you're playing something you are reading. Do you remember that openings piece the both of you did?
It is possible that he played Finch Eye. I'm not sure, so I have to hear it.
Finch Eye, to be clear about this, that's a composition of Theo Loevendie.
Yeah, and an old composition already, but I think he wrote it for Boy Edgar big band. Yeah. So a long time ago.
Yes. we go to Braam. It's 2013. I filmed you in the studio. You are going to play a very long blues. Can you say something about this group? Why this group? What your idea was with this group?
When I was an adolescent, there were many firsts in me. I was the first student at the department I'm head of now, for instance. But I also was the first one who did have classes at Lindenberg Music School here in Nijmegen at the light music department, it was called back then. And it was also very new in the Netherlands. It was the first. It was the first in its sort. So it was. You could study. You could go to a music school and study light music. That means mainly jazz music and pop music. And back then I had so when I was 14, 15, I had. We had the rolling hour. You could go to several bands. So you never had only education on your instrument, but you always also played in a band. And I think this was a very nice idea. And in one of those bands, I played with Lucebert. He was a guitar player. He still is a guitar player. And and he did all kind of things. So at one point he came with In a Silent Way. So he said, we're going to do In a Silent Way with this band. So the tune, the Miles Davis tune, you cannot really call it a tune, but the Miles Davis idea and the theme. So we played that, and in that band I was playing Wurlitzer. And so at one point I thought, this sound, because I did it when I was 14, 15, 16 years old. And that's a very important phase of your life when it comes to taste. So my taste also has a lot of Wurlitzer in it. And I forgot completely about the Wurlitzer piano. Until when I started Braam. And I think that was 2006 that we started that group already. Okay. Yeah. So we made three albums. Mm-hmm. Or am I mistaken? No, I think it was 2006, but okay. I might be mistaken. But until that time, I forgot completely about the Wurlitzer piano because I really wanted to play acoustic piano only, and I was also very strict in not playing at straight piano, so I only played at grand pianos. And then I thought, well, this Wurlitzer sounds very nice, so I started to play Wurlitzer again. And then it with Pieter Dauma on bass guitar and Dirk Peter Kulsch. Did you record the session with Jörg Leenaert also?
We come to that later.
We come to that later, okay. So with those two guys, we did this, and I happened to ruin the Wurlitzer every concert we did. So I ruined at least 2 keys, and then you have to call someone, said, send me another key. So I didn't want it anymore. So I played Wurlitzer the first tour, and for the first CD I only played the Wurlitzer. And then afterwards I replaced it by Noordstage. That's a more robust electronic piano with a Wurlitzer built-in, which is not really a Wurlitzer, but no one hears except the real Wurlitzionados.
Yes. Did you play with this group in a different circuit?
No, not really. No, we played the same venues. Yeah.
We stay in 2013, go to November. You had a concert in the Bimhuis again in Amsterdam. And it was a Lucebert, Dutch poet and artist program with your, I think it was a new edition of Bik Bent Braam called Flexband Braam. And Remco Kampert was there. We don't see him in this clip, unfortunately, because I cut it only to your performance. But maybe very short, Michiel, to introduce this. Why that Lucebert program?
Because I was commissioned to do it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
By whom?
I think it was Peter Boersma, the photographer. Yeah. Made a lot of jazz photos. And also the son-in-law of Lucebert. And he with a few other people, they wanted to make a book with photos, jazz photos, had to do with Lucebert, texts by Lucebert. And they wanted to do something with specifically a telegram that at one point Simon Vinkeroog sent out to fellow 50ers. Yeah. The movement of the 50ers. I don't know if there is an English name for that, but around the 50s. There was a lot of happening, of course, in the 50s and the 60s. So he asked, I think for a magazine, but I'm not sure about that. I should look up the liner notes of that CD.
Well, there was also a book presented that evening.
Yes, I know. Yeah. I'm a failed saxophone player. Something like that was the name in English.
Indeed, yes.
Ik ben een gemankeerd saxofonist. This telegram, he sent it out to many musicians and many writers, people who were part of that 50s movement. Mm-hmm. And the question was, looking back at that time, what can you tell about it? And Lucebert, he wrote back in a telegram only, I think, 10 titles, jazz titles, from Misty to Hot House and Stratus Funk. So it was 10 jazz titles that represented that time. For him, yeah. And no explanation. It was only the titles. Something from Mingus, something Monk, Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, all kind of music was in there. So they asked me, can you make new arrangement of those tunes? And that was the start of the project. And then I did that, and I also thought, well, it's also nice to have a few tunes of my own in that program, to make it a 2-set program. And then I wrote on his Japanese epigrams, I wrote music. So he had very short epigrams, short poems about all kind of things. And I wrote music to those titles as well.
Is it correct? I don't remember very specific and precise, but is it a different edition? It's another edition of Bik Bent Braam, but other musicians, really other musicians.
What I wanted to do in those days was continue Bik Bent Braam with 13 musicians, but doing it in the sourdough method. That's how I called it. That means that part of the band stays, part of the band is renewed. Year later, part of the band stays, another part is renewed, etc. Okay. So that you get some kind of like sourdough bread, that in a way the tradition, some part of the tradition stays, but you also bring in something new. Okay. Yes. And that was, and the title for that was Flexband Braam. And then we were in a time frame where all subsidies stopped. That means that it was not possible to do this anymore with 13 musicians. So the first version of Flexband Braam was with 7 musicians. Yes. Yeah, half of it.
Can you mention names?
And then it stopped in total because it was too expensive. It was not possible anymore. No, and all subsidies stopped. Everything stopped back then. Yeah, the musicians: Tony Overwater on double bass, Joost Leijbaert on drums, and then Bart van der Putten alto saxophone, Olaf Holman, a German baritone saxophone player, Angelo Verploegen on trumpet, and Walter Wiebels trombone.
Dank u zeer. Wat een wereld van morgen.
We moved to a recording I made of you in Artes, rehearsing. I did a program about you and this new group. The new group hadn't already the new name. And now I know, of course, it is called Nos Otrobanda. Can you explain this move to this music?
Well, I did play a lot of Cuban music when I was at the end of my studies. So I always have had a lot of love for South and Middle American music. So, and in 20 years before we started Nos Otrobanda, Marianne, my wife, she gave me a cassette with Antillean music. And I really liked it, but I was simply too busy to do anything with it. And because I had my other projects, Bik Bent Braam and Bentje Braam and Trio Braam XYZ. So we were doing a lot of concerts. It was simply very busy. So I simply forgot about it. And then at one point, well, it's one of the advantages of the subsidy stopping. There was more time. Yeah. So I had time to dive into this music. So I had that cassette, that music cassette, and I did a little research on that music. So I tried to find out where the composers were from and who were the composers and how this all worked. And I was in contact with a foundation, the Palm Music Foundation, and it's called after the Palm family. So at one point, a Swedish guy moved, and I think it's a few hundred years ago, a Swedish guy moved from Sweden to the Antilles. Oh. And he was called Palm, so it has nothing to do with the palm tree. No. It was really like Swedish palm. And they started to make music there, and this music had some combination of what you hear in a lot of South and Middle American music, combination of European harmonies and melodies, and the more African rhythms. And that was in this music as well happening. So there was a lot of, you can hear a lot of Chopin in the music, a lot of waltzes. So the Antillean waltz was something that was played for hundreds of years in the Antilles. And I thought, well, I have to do something around that too. So I asked André Groen. He was the leader of this danzón, this Cuban music band, European danzón orchestra, which I had played in for 10 years. On percussion, and Ati de Wind on the baby bass. And he is coming from the Antilles, and he's coming from Curaçao. So he knows this music from his youth already. So it was very worthwhile for me to play with him, because he could explain and let me feel that music, how it should be played. So I kind of specialized in that music, and still want to do my own things as well in that music. Mm-hmm. So I also improvised in a way, in my own way, which developed over the years, of course. But so it is not as wild as I played with the danzón orchestra, because that was sometimes really wild. Mm-hmm. Then you hear the Cuban music, and every now and then, if you hear a Cuban pianist doing that, you think you are listening to Cecil Taylor, for instance. So it can go all directions. This is Antillean music is a little bit more polite, but still I in a way do it in my own way. So you can't fool an Antillean. So if Antillean people are hearing this music, they directly know that it's not an Antillean pianist playing it.
Okay. So, because you played it there, eh?
Yeah, we did 2 concerts in Willemstad. Yeah. There were both sold-out concerts in the Fortkerk, and people were really very enthusiastic about it. Okay. Yeah.
Were there relatives of the composer, Mr. Palm?
Yes, there were several relatives. It was also organized by someone who was a relative. Okay. Yeah. And I can say a little thing about it. There was one person who bought a CD of ours, and she was there with her father, and her father was having dementia heavily. So the father didn't remember what had happened 5 minutes earlier. So they bought a CD, and a week after the concert, I got a message on my phone. Someone said, "Well, what happened now? I really have to tell this. We played the CD, and my father, he remembered the evening. He remembered who we were sitting next, and what the evening was about, with whom he had talked. That was very interesting because that was some kind of it looked like some kind of a miracle, and I find this a very nice example of how music can cure, in a way, people, or there are all kinds of things going on there, which you really not can explain. But the importance of music, that was for me one of the moments that I really saw, my God, this music is so important for people. You cannot do without. And it's doing something there that you cannot explain.
Beautiful story.
And of course, it was a connection to his youth, I think. So because it were those tunes, yes. And still I played it in my own way. So it's how this works, I have no idea.
This was 2014 what we heard. We move now to 2016. Then I filmed you again in a totally different musical context. I filmed the concert of you with voice, lady of the voice, Greetje Bijma, in Nijmegen. Was this also the first time that the two of you worked together?
I don't think so. No, I think we did some things before. I'm not sure if we did duo before. Okay. We did sextet before with Trio Braam and Walter and Frank Radkowski.
Okay, yes.
And
she also did duos with Bas Andriessen.
Yes, I know that. Yeah, yeah.
But whose initiative was it?
Greetje wanted to do some anniversary concert at the Bimhuis. So she asked sextet. Yes, the idea was coming from her and her husband.
Because she knew your music?
Yeah, of course. We know each other music. Yeah. Already back then. And then at one point, at least I know that doing duo with Greetje was very rewarding in a way that I learned a lot from that, because I'm a pretty rhythmic player, and Greetje is not that much into rhythm. It's more into poetics and sounds, etc. So what I learned from that is that rhythm is more flexible than I thought before I played with her. So it was a very interesting experience for me. And I really love to play with her because she has such a nice vocabulary and a lot of luggage in her backpack that she can use at any time.
Yes.
The birds who live in cages never spread their wings. They sit with ruffled feathers on tiny little swings, and they speculate the bird seeds, and while away today, they tuck their hats and feathers of a colorful array. I know why the caged bird sings a sweet and soulful song. I know why the caged bird sings when everything seems so wrong. I know why the caged bird sings and flaps its feathered wings Tussen de middag en de avond. Heel veel je neer. Tussen de middag en de avond. Heel veel je neer. Tussen de middag en de avond. Heel veel je neer. Heel veel je neer. Heel veel je neer. Tussen de middag en de avond. Heel veel je neer. De hoge man loert de aardgeest uit vochtige bossages. De hoge man loert de aardgeest uit vochtige bossages. En hoest. Tussen de middag en de avond heel veel jenever. Tussen de middag en de avond onder de hoge maan. Onder de hoge maan loopt de aardgeest. Onder de hoge maan loopt de aardgeest. Uit vochtige passages. Loert uit vochtige bossages en hoest.
Again, we move 1 year, May 2017. I again filmed you with Braam, but now you could say Braam Plus. Well, Explain.
Triple Jump. We called it the group Triple Jump. It was, I was commissioned to do something for a Colombian biologist, Anna Isabel Ordonez. And she commissioned me to do several things, and one of the things was write music for a group that plays with silent movies. So we did that at several venues in Antwerp, etc., years before that. And at one point she said, I have this children's book, The Extraordinary Love Story of I and Fedor. And she wanted to do music. She wanted to make a music version of that. So she asked me to write tunes on the titles of the book. And she invited Braam and Dean Bauman. He's a singer from New York, fantastic singer from New York, for the lyrics, for the text. So he was a narrator. So it's some sort of a Peter and the Wolf, but then with this story. Yes. So he is narrating this story, and we are playing music on top of that, or next to it, or etc. So we did that, and she also is a CD, so we recorded that at Sebastian Galloway studio. And
that's where I filmed you.
That's where you filmed us in live and concert. But we did make a recording. It was not live. It was studio, really a studio album. And also a very, very nice project, I think. Also with the narration of Dean Bauman on top of that. And Braam worked together with, there were two guest musicians. One was Jörg Leenaert, the guitar player.
We see him in this recording.
Sorry?
We see him in this recording.
Yes, we see him in this recording. And Ulrike van Meijer on harp. So we did that. She was not at that recording, but she did do a few concerts we did also. So yes, one was the covered open air.
I have some images of that concert with a sad camera, but I have some images of her.
I know, and I've seen some footage of that, and I really liked the frogs in it. You can hear the frogs, because there were a lot of frogs that evening. Yeah.
They were accompanying you.
They were accompanying me, yeah. It was a nice evening. Yeah. Yeah. We also played with Benjamin Herman, I remember, that evening. Yeah.
And now we move to a duo which has, again, a totally different idiom. A duo that existed a long time ago already, but I decided to do a clip of the later version of you. It's called Two Penguins in the Desert, with Frank Nielander. His name was mentioned several times already, because he's also in other projects of you. Well, this is a clip, images of 2018, the concert I filmed of you in Eindhoven, live concert. But maybe you should explain very shortly the history, not the entire history, but shortly your connection with Frank and Two Penguins.
Yeah, it was a project we started for our graduation concert.
Okay.
So we studied together and doing the first graduations in artist jazz and pop, light music, or it was called back then. I like that, light music, compared to dark music. So it was very light music. And we did play mainly tunes from the cool jazz period and also from the bebop period. That's why we were called Two Penguins in the Desert. So cold and hot.
Yes. And this duo existed in several moments of your career, one could say.
Yeah, we worked until roughly, I would say, 2003 or something. And then again from 2013 on, something like that. So we stopped for a while. Also, Frank did work as a doctor for several years within that period that we didn't play. And then at one point, Frank needed a replacement in his band because he had a project. He was starting again to play a lot, and the piano player couldn't make it, so he asked me, and then we said, well, let's start again with the duo, because the duo also it feels very much at home. So, for instance, we played Wow in the 80s and June, and over the 90s, because we did play a lot of concerts, and we did play Wow, Lenny Tristano tune, which is pretty hard. It has a B part with only 16, and we did play it in thirds, so it was not very easy.
It's famous for its complexity.
Yeah, it's famous for its complexity. Well, Lenny Tristano is famous for its complexity.
Okay.
And then at one point, after this break of 10 years or a little longer even, then he said, well, let's try to do Wow again. Why not? You never know, it's still in the fingers. And it was still in the fingers. Right. It is so also a very interesting that you see that it's in a way that your memory also, what your fingers do is also there stored somewhere in your memory and doing it together. That's also interesting. Yes. Because it's really a hard tune. Yeah. I think because I practiced it a lot, it makes it a bit easier to simply play it again after a break of 15 years or something. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to see.
All right, we move now to December 24th, 2019, Brebbel, Nijmegen. Son Bent Braam. There's a version of Bik Bent Braam again, one could say, but in a totally different jacket. More or less in the idiom that we already heard in Nos Otrobanda. What can you say about Son Bent Braam?
Son Bent Braam, we started as a follow-up to the XYZ of Bik Bent Braam. That piece was written 25 years earlier, and I thought it would be nice to make some kind of a festive version of this piece. So again, those 26 pieces, and in a way, making them all sort of Latin tunes. So I used a lot of different Latin styles in this. So you say it has to do with Nos Otrobanda. Well, some tunes have, but most tunes have a little bit more with Cuban music to do. So there is a lot of mambos and cha-cha-cha going on. So one of the tunes back then was also called cha-chachtig, chachery.
You hear it?
Yeah, so that's more the cha-cha stands for the cha-cha style, of course. And in a way, this, if you play this with Son Bent Braam, it's some sort of a homecoming, because back then in the original version, Walter Wierbos plays the theme, I remember, and now the theme is played with and the rhythm section was Joop van Erven and Wilbert Joda and me, and now the rhythm section is 3 percussionists. André Groen, Martin Gort and Danny Rombout. And again, Ati on the baby bass and me on piano. So this gives a completely different, it's some sort of a homecoming for this tune.
Well, as part of the clip that we are going to see, we see the first 4 or 5 letters of the alphabet. COVID was starting to happen. Was that the reason that this band fell apart?
Of course, we had these 2 concerts. It were recordings for an album. So I worked my heart out to make an album of it. And it was a very nice album. The album came back from the factory in the week that we had our first lockdown. So in March. and then, of course, we already had many concerts booked. Bimhuis, North Sea Jazz Festival, music meeting, it was all booked. And then nothing happened. Yes. Because there were no concerts. No. So we played most of those concerts 2 years later. So that was the reason, it was not ideal. No. Schedule-wise. So many of those concerts we did 2 years later. Some festivals, Bimhuis, of course, etc., music meeting.
Okay. Does the group still exist in one way or another?
No, it was, again, oh my God, the organization with such a group. Yeah. It's, and then with not so much subsidies around anymore, it is undoable. If you want to have a big band, like 13 musicians, that is a big band, then you really need funding. It's not possible to do it otherwise. And the funding was, we had a little funding by the Prins Bernhard Foundation. We were very happy with that. But it was the only one who said, okay, we can fund you. So we had 10,000 from the Prins Bernhard Foundation. And with 13 musicians, you can do rarely anything with that. But we were happy because it was still 10,000, so we could do a few things. But I think we did, in the end, something like 10 concerts. Okay. So it was not bad, but I would happily have played more.
Well, we move to the end now, Michiel, and that we are going to do that with current groups of you, also images that you shot yourself or clips that you made yourself. I'm going to make a combination of the two, I think, because there are also two projects, more or less, and they were presented together also. So, please explain.
Well, we had the Penguins, so Frank and I, we were thinking about what's next thing we are going to do. So we were playing this crime project, and we thought, well, we have to do something else now. And then we were thinking, and at one point, I remember I said, I want to do the Wish You Were Here, Pink Floyd program. I really like it. I hear it my whole life already. And it's something I want to do something with. And we thought it was not possible to do it without a vocalist. So we asked Vera Westera, the one who also sang in Nopera, yes, if she wanted to do that. And she was very much interested, so we had some rehearsals. And we wanted to do it also complete. So as one thing, 45 to 60 minutes, something like that, like the album, like the Pink Floyd album. Mm-hmm. And all parts, and with, of course, with improvisation in between, and our own way of playing it. And then that's only 45 to 60 minutes. So what do you do next? that was not clear then. At the same time, André Groen brought in some Noro Morales tunes in Nos Otrobanda. So we are playing with this Antillean trio also a few tunes of Noro Morales. Noro Morales was a very famous Puerto Rican piano player and big band leader. He was called the Duke Ellington of Latin music in the 60s. And he was living in New York back then. And he had an orchestra that played many mambos. So André brought in those pieces for Nos Otrobanda, and then at one point I thought, well, it's also nice to play this with more percussion and with a double bass, because the music of Noro Morales was played originally with double bass and normally with 3 percussion players. And then with piano, of course, Noro Morales was the pianist. And sometimes with a bigger orchestra, with all the horns on top of that. So I didn't want to do that because of, money, etc. All kind of hustle. I didn't want that. So we started to rehearse those tunes. I selected, and André also, a few Noro Morales tunes, something like 25. So we have 25, we rehearsed and now know something like 25 pieces of Noro Morales. And that means Noro Morales tunes or tunes Noro Morales played. So we also play, for instance, Obsession, which is a Latin classic, a really Latin classic, or Sway, Quien Sera, Sway in the American version. Dean Martin version was called Sway. And so we gathered this group with 3 percussion players, André Groen and Vera Groen, the sister of André, and Martin Gort. Martin plays the conga, and Vera mainly the timbales, and André mainly the bongos. And then Gerard Schoeren on double bass and me on piano. And that was also something that we thought, well, perhaps an hour, 2 hours is also possible because we know 25 tunes, but an hour is nice. So we thought we can combine these 2 things. Okay. So, and it's a nice combination to have. Before the intermission, you have something that is really listening, and after the intermission, you can do something that you can also only listen to, but you can also dance to.
So the 2 projects are called Oye Mambo and Ping 2. Yeah. And Oye Mambo starts and Ping 2 ends, or?
No, the first set is only listening, that's Ping 2.
Okay, yeah.
And the second set is dancing, or listening, or listening.
So you offer these 2 bands in one could say?
Yeah, it's a package deal.
A package deal, okay.
A double bill, is it?
Okay.
So we also sell them separate now. Yeah, okay. Yeah, because we also know that. Meanwhile, we know that there are not very many venues interested in having both sets.
Can we say that this is your main musical activity now at this moment?
Absolutely, yeah. This is what it's about right now. Yeah, you never know what happens, but I'm feeling very comfortable with these 2. What's also nice about it, well, it's nice to play Latin music a lot, and not Antillean. I also like playing Antillean music, but Antillean music is mainly waltzes, and this is mainly 4/4 or 12/8 or how you want to call it. That's different, so I like that, and I have a lot of freedom, and I also like playing all those lovely tunes because the melodies are really very nice. And what I like in Ping 2 is that I'm mainly accompanying, and I'm really enjoying setting a rhythm on my own, because there's no bass, there's no drums, so I have to do it all by myself, and I really enjoy it. Okay. Yeah.
sky.
Welcome, my son. Welcome to the machine.
Dear boy, have a cigar, you're gonna go far. You're gonna fly high, you're never gonna die. You're gonna make it if you try, they're gonna love you. Now we found the same old face. Wish you were here. Shine on, you crazy devil, and we'll bask in the shadow of yesterday's triumph. Lord of the
¿Quién será la que me quiera a mí? ¿Quién será? ¿Quién será? ¿Quién será la que me dé su amor? ¿Quién será? ¿Quién será? Yo no sé si la podré encontrar. No, no sé. Yo no sé. No sé si la volveré a querer. Yo no sé. Yo no sé. He querido volver a vivir la ilusión, la pasión de un amor que me hiciera sentir, que me hiciera feliz como ayer lo fui. Ay, ¿quién será la que me quiera más? ¿Quién será? ¿Quién será? ¿Quién será la que me dé su amor? ¿Quién será? ¿Quién será?
the shore. Hold me close and sway me more. Like a flower bending in the breeze. Bend with me and stay with ease. When we dance, you have a way with me. Stay with me and sway with me. Other dancers may be on the floor, but my eyes will see only you. Only she has that magic technique. When we sway, I go weak, and I can hear the sound of violins long before it begins. Make me thrill as only you know how. Sway me more, sway me now.
Well, this was a journey through 35 years of MICHIEL BRAAM music. I would say let's go for the next 35 years.
I don't know, the end is near. Well, why not? Yeah, you never know what happens.
Thank you, MICHIEL.
Thank you.